Alright, here's my third try at trying to record this. What's up, guys? Specstar here today with my Week 1 Battle Mega Beedrill, going up against my man, Ralph Nader. Yo! As he has famously said. And he's got a team consisting of Galarian Weezing, Megalopony, Slowking, Mamoswine, Thundurus, and Hydreigon. And I will just switch over here to my team. Starting off, I've got my Mega Gardevoir, Hyper Voice. Pretty damn much hits everything on his team very well. And I have got just enough speed on it for Hydreigon and pretty basic creep. I've got Taunt on this to stop things, particularly Slowking and Munchlax, from using any recovery moves. Knockoff helps against an Assault Vest Slowking, which could actually show to be a little annoying to this in a few mocks I did. And Energy Ball hits Mamoswine a little bit better, which particularly if he had grassy terrain, which he did not bring it. He didn't bring his Rillaboom, but if he had grassy terrain up, the extra damage could have been useful. And that's that. Next up here, I've got my very physically defensive Tornadus Therian with heavy-duty boots. This thing is my intended wall for Megalopony, and pretty much it takes attacks, almost anything from it very well. The only attack it has a hard time taking is Triple Axle, but I don't know if he would take the gamble of running Triple Axle, because if I had Helmet, it would do... What does a Helmet do to Triple Axle? Like 50% on the first hit? So I didn't know if he'd be willing to take that chance, and I was very much hoping he wouldn't. So yeah, I ran my boots there. I got Knockoff and U-Turn. A lot of that's for Slowking. Being able to knock off Slowking. And particularly the damage of those two moves was very useful for getting it in range of my Gardevoir. Hurricane basically hit everything else. Focus Blast hit Mamo a bit. It hit Steelix, which was important. And it hit Hydreigon a little bit harder, so it had a few different usefulnesses to me. And yeah. Next up here, I've got my Zygarde. And I'm running a speedy but bulky sub-toxic set. I've got enough speed on this thing for Mammal, if I'm not mistaken. If not, I had a little bit extra. And I'm running Sub-Protect Toxic. Dragon Dance had a lot of potential in this matchup, but this, I would be able to throw off Toxic or Sub as Mammal came in, and been able to slowly wear the thing down. Laptop crashed about 50 times, but let's give this another shot. As I was saying, this set of Zygarde is better at... The other Zygarde would kind of get shat on by Mamoswine being able to come in and get pressured out after setting up, which was unideal. But this set, if I get off a Toxic, I can slowly wear it down, so Mamoswine coming in isn't the end of the world for me. So I got that Sub-Toxic Protect and Arrows, all I need there. And next up here, I've got my Roserade, and I'm running a specially defensive set with Spikes, Dual Stab, and Synthesis. This mon is here largely to wall Hydreigon, which could very much become a problem otherwise. I wanted to fit Dazzling Gleam in, but actually Sludge Bomb and Energy Ball do a really good job hitting the entirety of his team, so I couldn't really pass up either of those. And definitely, I couldn't fit Rocks in this week, so having Spikes is definitely pretty nice for being able to hurt his switches. Next up here, I've got Terrakion, and actually going into this, I'm looking at this mon as potentially being a win con. It hits everything on his team really well, being Scarfed, aside from Weezing, which I would have to wear down earlier in the game to set this thing up, as it did come to the game. It didn't come to some of the mocks I had, so it did wind up really going off here. But I'm running a Scarf set, basic Dual Stab. Megahorn hits things such as particularly his Slowking pretty well. And Sacred Sword is literally... I didn't need a fourth move that much, and it's there in case Munchlax got curses off. You know, leave no stone unturned. Sacred Sword would ignore the defense boost. And lastly here we have a Flame Orb Milotic, which is my answer to Mamoswine. And I'm actually running Protect, which is kind of weird on a Flame Orb set. But I needed to get off the Flame Orb right away, because if this Milotic is not burned, then I can't bring it in on Mamoswine, or else 2 Earthquakes would kill it. So I need to get it burned fast if Mamoswine comes, and it did come. and protect as necessary there. Alright, back again with the battle. I recorded this, but the video screwed up, so I'm hoping that if I do it without the webcam, it'll lag less, and there will be no issue recording this. So, unfortunately, you guys are going to have to miss my beautiful face, but in the start of the video, hopefully you got enough of it to hold you over. If needed, what you can do is you can open the tab, open this in another tab, and you can hear the volume of me talking, but you can keep the previous tab and find a picture of my face and stare at that, so it's like I'm talking to you about the battle. So you guys have that option if you miss my face while I'm in this battle. But yeah, as I was saying, I needed to lead off with Milotic so I could get the thing burned, and that's crucial. He goes for Hydreigon, and I'm actually gonna just decide here that my best play would be to go for the recover. And yeah, it looks like it's not mitigating the lag. Hopefully I can get through this, but not the recover. I decided that my best place to go for Toxic and kind of feel this thing out. There's only a few scenarios where Milotic could really get too weakened from doing this, so I'm just going to kind of take my chances here and go for the Toxic. He goes into Slowking, and that's actually nice to poison. Lesser so now that it gets Teleport, but it's still pretty nice. I go into my Tornadus, which is just a really safe play, but he actually teleports out and goes into Mamoswine, which is not very good. I have to go into my Milotic, and he sets up his Rocks, which is actually not good for me. I'm getting put in the back foot pretty early in this game, but I'm in an attempt to try to gain back some momentum in my favor. I'm going to go into my Tornadus as he goes into his Hydreigon. I was actually thinking Tornadus more of an option if he went into something like Slowking there, which I was kind of thinking about. But he goes into Hydreigon, and I'm fine with that too. From the first turn, with it just leading off and U-turning and it showing to not have attack, I'm actually thinking of this thing as potentially being Scarfed. So I'm happy to go for Knockoff, which would cover any switch out, and if it stayed in, particularly with me thinking it's Scarf, knocking that off would be very nice. So I'm just going to go right for my Knockoff, which as he goes into Thunderous, that's definitely nice to get that little chip on it. I'm slower, so I'm going to have to go into Zygarde, which is always my switch into this thing. He goes for Psychic. I don't want to take a lot of damage. And here I just go for Toxic. I could have subbed, but if I know that he's probably not going to Wheezing, then it's better for me to just go for my Toxic, and I can keep my Zygarde healthier for when I have to switch it out. He's already rocked up, so there's not really any risk for me clicking Protect here. Not too much it can do to me if I do that. He goes into Wheezing here as I go for Protect, so I'm going to switch in my Roserade. And he goes for Strange Steam, and that shows to be completely defensive, no special attack investment. I'm going to go right for getting my Spikes up. Spikes are going to be potentially quite important for me in the game and hurting his switching. He goes into Hydreigon as I set up my second Spike, but I'm max specially defensive, so Hydreigon's not really scaring me. If it plotted up, that would be pretty threatening, but I'd just have to make a difficult choice of something to go and then bring in Terrakion to force it out. So I'm going to go for my Sludge Bomb here, and I'll kind of see what the Hydreigon's all about. He goes for Dark Pulse, and that's actually, I believe, Timid Specs damage, so that's good to know. Fortunately, I'm going to get the Sludge Bomb poison, which is nice for me, not so much for him. I'm going to go for Synthesis here, a cover to switch out, and I didn't know if he'd want to stay in, but I guess I just had to take the 20% chance of if he flinched me. He goes in Lopunny here, and my switch-in for that is always going to be my Tornadus. He goes for Close Combat, and I'm always scared of the triple Axle threat, but I'm kind of hoping that he would not bring it for the risk of getting helmeted. So I get my Tornadus in here, and I'm going to go for my U-turn here. Always, in my mind, the safe play. He goes into Thunderous. I get not much chip, but I get to bring in my Zygarde here, which is actually pretty nice. He doesn't have the greatest switch-ins for this. He goes into Wheezing, and it's Levitate, so that's good to know. Actually, I knew that from the first time because Neutralizing Gas introduces itself. But yeah, he's Levitate, which is probably for risk of Earthquake Terrakion, I would think. And this tells me he's Bold, max physically defensive. And that means that a Strange Steam would do about 40% to me, so I'm willing to take that, and then 2 turns of leftovers in exchange for killing it. So I'm just going to go for another 1,000 arrows. He goes into Mamoswine, and I'm actually getting very important chip on what is the most scary Pokemon to me, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. But now I have a monster in front of my face that I have to deal with. I go into my Milotic here. He goes for Knockoff, and I'm always just recovering here. He goes into Thundurus to pressure this thing, and I go into Zygarde quite safely. He makes a play and goes into Hydreigon here, and I know now that he specs, so I'm good to just go for my Protect and try to wear the thing's health out a little bit. He goes for Draco. I know he's locked in, so I can go into my Gardevoir here with no consequence. He actually makes a good play and goes into Lopunny. If he's Mega Kick, that would KO my Gardevoir, so I'm forced to switch out here. I go into my Tornadus as per usual. He goes into Slowking. I want to knock the thing off. He brings in Thundurus. I want to go into Zygarde. He brings in Weezing. And at this point, I believe it was a roll for my 1,000 arrows to 2 at KO him, so I just go into my Roserade, which is more of a safe play. And I could have got up my last layer of Spike, but I'm looking at his team, and he just does not switch in on Sludge Bomb very well at this point. So I'm going to go right for my Sludge Bomb here. And he pulls the switch into Thundurus, which is nice to kill that Pokemon right now. So Roserade picks up the first kill of the season. Then Lopunny comes back in, and I'm actually going to go into Milotic this time, because if he does have Triple Axle, this would be the time he clicks it. And I went into Tornadus all the other times, so he might try to make a play predicting the Tornadus. I go to my Milotic, he actually goes for the Power-Up Punch. So I'm going to try and recover off here and kind of see what he's throwing at me. He goes for Close Combat. I don't have a great switch-in, or a switch-in at all at this point, so I'm just willing to trade my Milotic to take down the Lopunny at this point. He goes for Close Combat. I just go for my Scald. He's going to drop, and I'm going to go down to 4%. And now I'm basically just ripe for the pickings. I don't have an amazing switch-in for Hydreigon there, so I'm just going to let my Milotic go down. He goes into Slowking, and I'm finally able to knock that thing off, which I go into my Tornadus to do. He goes for Ice Beam, doesn't do too much, but I'm just going to U-turn out and take this opportunity to bring in my Gardevoir. And I could taunt here, but I'm actually just going to go for an Energy Ball first, because I don't know exactly what he's going to try to do. He does just go for the Slack Off, so now I decide that I'm going to taunt him, thinking that he would opt to go for another one. And now he does not have a great way to switch into Gardevoir, and by clicking Hyper Voice, I'm going to be able to force a kill. Slowking is going to be what goes down here, and then Mamoswine is going to come in. Now, I know that there are 2 ways he can kill me since he's not Life Orb. He would have to be Scarf rocks and kill me with Crash or Earthquake, or he would have to be Banded and then he could kill me with Ice Shard. So I'm just going to have to say that if he wants to lock in to kill this, I kind of have to let him and just go for my Hyper Voice here. He does Band lock into his Ice Shard, so I bring in my Terrakion here. He goes into Weezing. I just click the safe Close Combat. I cannot risk missing a Stone Edge, so I go for the safe move. And then I bring in my Roserade on the Weezing. He goes for Aromatherapy, but now Sludge Bomb's looking pretty damn good. I fire off a Sludge Bomb as he goes into Mamoswine, and I'm actually able to kill that big monster that was very scary in prep. And now it's down. Hydreigon comes in, and I'm just going to go for Synthesis here. He does go for Draco, so that thing's going to be lowered into the point of not being able to threaten this anymore, so I now just click my Sludge Bomb. He goes for another Draco as